Look around you right now. If there's clutter nearby, piles of stuff, a chaotic desk, maybe a drawer you haven't opened in 2 years, I don't want you to feel guilty about it. I want you to feel curious about it. Because here's what nobody's telling you. The clutter isn't the problem. It's a message. So your brain has been trying to tell you something. And the pile of unopened mail and the 6 half-finished projects and the closet you can't close, that's the message. And once you understand what your nervous system is actually doing when clutter builds, you won't just be able to clean up your space, you'll be able to keep it clean for good. So let's talk about what's really going on. You've probably heard that clutter causes stress and anxiety, and of course there's research on that. But I think that explanation has it backwards, and I think it's actually keeping a lot of people stuck. Here's what the research actually shows when we look at this through a nervous system lens. When your nervous system is dysregulated, so that means your threat detection system, the amygdala, is activated chronically. Your prefrontal cortex goes partially offline. So that's the part of your brain that's responsible for planning, for prioritizing, for executing tasks. So in other words, a dysregulated nervous system literally impairs your ability to organize. It's not laziness, it's not a character flaw, it's a neurological state. So think about it this way. When your body perceives threat, I don't know, maybe that's a real tiger. Maybe it's, in the modern world, a difficult email. Or maybe you just have a generalized hum of anxiety. Your brain allocates resources toward survival, not toward deciding where to put the tax documents from last year. And here's the part that makes this a trap. Visual clutter then feeds the dysregulation. So your nervous system is constantly scanning your environment. When it detects disorder, it registers low-level threat. And that low-level threat keeps the amygdala just ever so slightly activated. And that activation keeps the prefrontal cortex ever so slightly suppressed, which means you still can't organize, which means more clutter, which means more dysregulation. It's a loop. And I promise you this, willpower alone is not going to break it. Now, most people think of clutter as physical stuff. So boxes, clothes, junk drawers, and of course that's part of it. But when your nervous system is dysregulated, clutter shows up in every area of your life, not just your closet. So here are the types of clutter I want you to think about. So the first one I want you to think about is physical clutter. This is the obvious one. The visual chaos of your environment. So things in your house that don't have a home, things you're going to deal with later, or duplicates of things you forgot you had. So the nervous system cost is this. Your brain is performing constant low-level threat assessment on every single item in your visual field, and this is exhausting. What it does is it consumes your cognitive bandwidth. You could be using this for literally anything else. So a cluttered room isn't just aesthetically unpleasant. It's actually, you're paying a price neurologically for it. The next one we have is mental clutter. So this is the tab overload in your brain. So the running list of things you haven't done, conversations you're replaying, worries you're pre-living. So when your nervous system is dysregulated, your brain's default mode network, so that's the network that's active when you're not focused on a task, this tends to get hijacked by rumination. So instead of creative thinking or solving problems happening in your downtime, you get anxious loops. We all know what that feels like. So the fix isn't to just think positive. You've got to get the thoughts out of your head and into a trusted external system. So writing to-do lists, your calendars, a simple notebook, right? When your brain knows something is recorded, then it stops having to hold on to it, stops having to rehearse it. The next one we have is emotional clutter. So this is old resentments, expired beliefs, maybe grudges you've been carrying for so long that you don't even remember where they started. Maybe they've even become part of your identity. So the nervous system cost here is significant. If you've got unresolved emotional material, this is keeping that threat response system primed because your body doesn't distinguish well between a present threat and a threat that you're vividly remembering in your mind. So every time you cycle through an old hurt, your physiology is actually responding as if it's happening now. So emotional decluttering means asking yourself, is this feeling giving me useful information right now, or is it old data that my system hasn't updated yet? The fourth one we've got is relationship clutter. So these are the relationships that consistently leave you more dysregulated after the interaction than before it. So people who drain your energy, or obligational relationships that you haven't questioned in years, or maybe social commitments that you dread. So if you've got a dysregulated nervous system, you're going to have a harder time setting limits. So relationship clutter has a tendency to accumulate when you are stressed. You say yes because you don't want to have conflict. You stay in dynamics that aren't working because the discomfort of change feels absolutely overwhelming. So quality of connection in your life is much more important than quantity. I want you to have a few relationships that feel genuinely safe and nourishing, because this is going to do more for your nervous system than a packed social calendar that's leaving you exhausted. And the fifth one is time clutter. So an overbooked schedule is a problem for your nervous system. All right? When every hour is spoken for, there's no buffer for your system to recover, to integrate, or simply rest. You know, I have moments where I go, whoa, I'm just doing too much here, and I've got to pull back. You've got to be aware of this because your nervous system needs idling time. This is literally unstructured time where you're not producing, you're not performing, you're not consuming. So this is when your brain has the chance to consolidate. It can consolidate what you've learned in the day. It can generate insights, can actually regulate itself. So if your days are jam-packed and your calendar has no white space, that's not productivity. That is a dysregulation maintenance strategy that you've dressed up as ambition. All right, so now you understand why the clutter is there. Let's talk about how to actually move it. And I want to be honest with you. If you try to tackle the clutter while your nervous system is dysregulated, it might feel overwhelming. You might get partway through and then stop. And the half-finished attempt might actually make things worse, both visually and emotionally. So the sequence matters. So the first thing you need to do is regulate yourself. All right? Do something that brings your nervous system down from this high alert. It doesn't have to be complicated, 5 minutes of slow, extended exhales. This is where your out-breath is longer than the in-breath. This activates the parasympathetic nervous system. Might go for a short walk. You might do a few minutes of meditation. You might sing along to a piece of music that you love, a song you love. You're not wasting time by doing this. You're literally giving your prefrontal cortex the blood flow that it needs to actually make decisions. And then the next step is to start absurdly small. And I mean absurdly small. Not, I'll clean the whole kitchen. Like one drawer, one corner, one bag that you donate. Okay? So the neuroscience shows us the reason that this works. If you complete a task, any task, you are triggering a small dopamine release. And that dopamine release provides just enough motivational fuel to take the next small step. So you're actually building momentum at the neurochemical level. The mistake most people make is waiting until they feel motivated enough to do a big project. But actually, the key that most people don't realize is that motivation follows action, not the other way around. So a small win creates the neurochemical state that makes the next action possible. And then one of the most underrated decluttering tools is a simple list, not because lists are inherently magical, but because writing something down removes it from your brain's working memory queue. You know how full on busy our brains are. And your nervous system is going to keep rehearsing anything it's afraid you'll forget. So you've got to give it permission to let go. Put it somewhere on a piece of paper, an app, a note, a whiteboard on the wall, whatever. So this applies to physical decluttering decisions too. If you're stuck on something, should I keep this? Should I sell it? Should I donate it? Write the decision criteria down once, then apply it. So don't reevaluate every item from scratch. Your brain's going to fatigue fast and start reverting to just keep everything. My rule is this. If I haven't used it in a year and replacing it would cost less than whatever it is that I'm comfortable with, it goes. All right? Pick your number, apply it consistently. And then we have to understand that some items are hard to let go of. Not because they're useful, but because they're emotionally loaded. Maybe the clothes from a different time in your life, or the things that belong to someone that you've lost, or the project you started that you didn't finish. So when you notice a strong emotional charge around an object, don't push through. Just ask yourself, what am I afraid I'll lose if I let this go? Often it's not the object. It's the feeling, the memory. Sometimes it's a version of yourself. And the good news is you don't need the object to access those things. Memories live in you, not stuff. One of the strategies I once heard that I thought was really good is if you have a sentimental object that you know you really could let go of, just take a photo of it. And I think that's a great way to keep it. Once you've done the decluttering, you have to understand it's a cycle. So the nervous system approach to maintenance is small, frequent, low effort resets. So 2 minutes at the end of the day to return everything to where it belongs. Like I just reset my desk, last thing before I finish work. Or you might do a 10-minute scan of the high clutter zones. One of the things that I like to do is I take breaks during my working day, just 5-minute breaks, and I use those breaks to move my body, and I move my body by decluttering a particular part of my house. All right? So just remember, tiny, consistent actions are so much better than massive ones. All right? So here's what I want you to take away from this. If you have clutter in your house, you're not a disorganized person. You're not lazy, you're not undisciplined, you're not beyond help. You're a person whose nervous system has been working overtime. And clutter is one of the ways that shows up in your life. So when you learn to regulate your nervous system first, everything that felt impossible starts to feel possible. Not just cleaning your space, but making decisions, following through, letting go of things that no longer serve you. So the clutter in your home, your mind, your schedule, your relationships, it's not a reflection of who you are. It's a reflection of what your nervous system has been carrying. And then you can put some of that down. So start with one small thing today. Regulate first and then begin. I hope this has been helpful. In the description, you're going to find here the happiness quiz. I really encourage you to do it. It's a powerful way to see where you are in your journey towards being happier. As always, be kind, take care, go gently in the world.